is supposed to be a day filled with laughter and candy. But in a small town in Texas in 1974, candy became a murder weapon. The killer was not a stranger on the street, but his own father. This was a case that made the whole country believe Halloween can bring death in every candy bar. Deer Park, a suburb of Houston, Texas. On the night of the 31st of October 1974, Ronald Clark O'Brien's family prepared for Halloween. Ronald was a 9-year-old insurance worker living with his wife Daneen and 2 young children, Timothy, 8 years old, and Elizabeth, 5 years old. Despite his financial decline, Ronald still wanted to join his children in the trick-or-treat tradition of asking for candy from neighbors. There was nothing unusual about the people of Deer Park that night. Children dressed in costumes, knocking on doors, and laughter echoed throughout the neighborhood. Ronald took Timothy and Elizabeth with him and their friends. They knocked on each door. One house was dark and no one answered. Ronald told the group to go ahead while he stayed and knocked a few more times. A while later, Ronald returned with 5 long pixie stick sticks, a sweet powdered candy that children love. He said, "Someone in the house just opened the door and gave them candy." Ronald gave 4 sticks to the group of children, Timothy, Elizabeth, and 2 of their friends' children. He gave the 5th stick to another boy in the neighborhood whom he happened to meet that Halloween night. Everything seemed to end happily. But a few hours later, tragedy began. Timothy's death. At around 9 p.m., Timothy returned home. Before going to bed, he begged his father to let him have some candy. Ronald took the pixie stick and gave it to his son. Timothy opened the package, but the candy was stuck at the end. Ronald helped him shake the powder off. Timothy ate a few spoonfuls, then cried out, "Daddy, it's so bitter." A few minutes later, the boy began vomiting violently, convulsing, his eyes rolling back. The family panicked and called an ambulance. But only an hour later, at the hospital, Timothy was declared dead. The police immediately suspected Halloween candy. They confiscated the remaining pixie sticks bars. The result, all of them were laced with cyanide, a highly toxic substance. Just a few grains were enough to kill an adult. The bar Timothy ate contained enough poison to kill 2 adults. The news spread throughout Houston, then across the United States. Newspapers carried a chilling headline: Halloween candy poisoned, beware. Fear spread. Parents across the country began checking, even throwing away their children's candy. Police suspect Ronald. The investigation revealed only 5 pixie sticks were poisoned, and all of them were given to the children by Ronald. The house where he claimed people were giving candy was actually empty that night. Ronald was heavily in debt and on the verge of bankruptcy. A few months earlier, he had taken out life insurance policies totaling $60,000 on Timothy and Elizabeth. Coworkers said Ronald had asked to borrow poison and was caught researching cyanide. Ronald O'Brien was arrested on the 5th of November, 1974. Just 5 days after Halloween. The 1975 trial became a major media event, with the press dubbing him the Candyman, or the man who killed Halloween. Prosecutors alleged Ronald killed his children for insurance money and nearly killed 4 other children with poisoned candy. Evidence, life insurance, witness testimony, and lies in his story. On the 3rd of June 1975, the jury took only 46 minutes to conclude Ronald was guilty. He was sentenced to death by lethal injection. In prison, Ronald kept pleading innocent, but everyone was disgusted. Other prisoners called him the Candy Baby Killer. On the 31st of March 1984, after 9 years of waiting for his sentence, Ronald O'Brien was given a lethal injection at Huntsville Prison, Texas. Outside the prison, more than 300 people gathered, many of them carrying Halloween candy and chanting "Trick or treat" as a cruel mockery. He died alone, forever known as the man who turned Halloween into a nightmare. The Candyman case left a dark legacy. Since then, American parents always check their children's Halloween candy. Cut it in half, examine it carefully, and even throw it away. Decades later, many stories of poisoned candy still circulate, though most are rumors. But the fear stems from this real case. Ronald became a symbol of the most terrible betrayal. A father killing his own child for money. Halloween is often associated with games and candy, but in 1990, a bowling alley in Las Cruces, New Mexico, turned into hell. 2 strangers walked in, and within minutes, 4 people were dead. 3 others were gasping for breath. More than 30 years later, the case has still not been found. Las Cruces is a peaceful desert town with a population of about 60,000 inches the early 1990 seconds. The Las Cruces Bowl, located along Valley Drive, was a familiar gathering place for family and friends. On the 2nd of November 1990, a Friday morning, people were still reminiscing about Halloween the night before. Inside, employees were preparing to open the door. A few children were playing in the office. No one knew that tragedy was about to strike. At around 8 a.m., when the manager Stephanie S., 34, was working with her young daughter and a few employees, two strange men entered through the back door. They carried pistols and controlled everyone in the office. They gathered the employees and 3 children, including a 2-year-old and a 6-year-old. One of them ordered the safe to be opened, but Stephanie could not open it completely because the safe had a timer. Instead of leaving, they became aggressive. They forced everyone to lie face down on the floor. After a few minutes of waiting, one of the 2 men made a cold decision. Shoot all the witnesses. They opened fire on 7 people lying on the floor, including 4 adults and 3 children. Blood splattered on the wall. The crying stopped. They set fire to the office with papers, intending to burn the scene. Then they disappeared, leaving no trace. 4 people died on the spot. 3 others were seriously injured, but miraculously survived, including a 2-year-old girl. Las Cruces police arrived at the scene just minutes after the fire was extinguished. Scene: 7 people lying on top of each other, blood staining the carpet. A 2-year-old girl, despite being shot, called 911 and described the perpetrators: 2 Hispanic men, about 30 years old, one tall and thin, the other short and stocky. But security cameras were not common at that time, and there were no outside witnesses. The FBI and New Mexico police got involved. They reconstructed portraits and launched a large-scale manhunt. However, no one was arrested. The 2 men disappeared like ghosts. The Las Cruces massacre shocked the entire United States. The press called it one of the worst unsolved mass shootings in U.S. history. Las Cruces residents panicked, and the bowling alley became a painful memory. Many conspiracy theories have emerged. The robbery failed, so they killed the person to silence him. The drug gang wanted to show off. Someone had an insider's knowledge. But 30 years have passed. The case remains cold. The file is still open, but the traces are cold. The Las Cruces case is a reminder that even on a holiday, even in a seemingly harmless place like a bowling alley, violence can erupt at any time. The biggest obsession is not just the number of deaths, but the silence. The perpetrator is still at large. Every year, around Halloween, the people of Las Cruces still hold the memorial. They light candles, pray, hoping that one day justice will be served. Halloween is a time to dress up as a ghost, to play harmless pranks that make us shiver. But in Sandusky, Ohio, in 2010, a man turned a Michael Myers mask into a weapon of death. And a costume party turned into a cold-blooded crime scene. On the night of the 31st of October 2010, the city of Sandusky on Lake Erie, Ohio, was no different from any other American town. Teenagers, dressed in costumes, gathered to dance, drink beer, and play loud music. A suburban house held a Halloween party, with more than 20 people attending. In the flickering light of jack-o'-lantern pumpkins, with rock music blaring, no one thought tragedy was about to happen. At about 11 p.m., in the middle of the party, a man wearing a Michael Myers mask walked in. Michael Myers, the famous killer character in the Halloween series. 1978, with a lifeless white mask and a long knife. Many people at the party laughed, thinking it was just a costume prank. He was silent, said nothing, and walked slowly through the crowd. Some people began to shiver, but still thought it was a role. Suddenly, the masked man pulled out a real knife and rushed straight at a 9-year-old boy, Jacob D., one of the guests. The stab was quick and decisive. Blood spurted out amid a scream of horror. The crowd was shocked. Many still did not believe it was real. In a few seconds, the bustling party turned into chaos. People ran, people cried, and people fell. Jacob died on the spot. Sandusky police received an emergency call. When they arrived, they found a young man stabbed to death, and the masked man had run away, witnesses said. At first, they thought it was a Halloween game, so they did not react in time. A manhunt was immediately launched. Not long after, the police arrested the perpetrator. Vincent Parker, 21 years old, a loose acquaintance of the partygoers. In court, Vincent Parker testified he was insulted, felt disrespected in the group of friends. In a fit of anger, he brought a knife and a mask to scare everyone. But in the end, he killed Jacob. The prosecutor accused this of premeditated murder. Evidence: he had prepared a knife, chose a Michael Myers mask to sow fear. The jury convicted him of first-degree murder. Vincent Parker was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Jacob's death raised a fear. The line between Halloween costumes and real crime is too fragile. Since the incident, many parents have become more cautious about letting their children attend parties. The image of a masked killer blending into a crowd still haunts Americans. You never know who is behind the mask, a friend or a murderer.